Good morning, good afternoon, and namaste. Welcome to a special webinar on From Colombo to Dhaka to Kathmandu, the fault lines of South Asia, where we'll be talking about Nepal's current crisis, which has emerged as a movement led by Gen Z, which has inspired many similar movements in Colombo, Dhaka, and others. Uh, this session is jointly organized by Nepal Institute for International Cooperation and Engagement, NICE, South Asia Foresight Network, the Millennium Project, and Economic Crime and Geopolitical Center. We all know that after the political unrest in Colombo and Dhaka, Nepal now faces its own wave of turmoil with growing frustration among the youth. Inspired by global and regional movements, Nepal's Gen Z is increasingly vocal about corruption, unemployment, and weak governance. Their activism, amplified by social media, reflects impatience with traditional political elites and demands for accountability. This generation is less bound by ideology and more driven by results, often mobilizing spontaneously to challenge the status quo. While their energy signals democratic vibrancy, unchecked discontents risk fueling instability. Nepal's leader must address these concerns to prevent further political and social upheavals. It is in this context we are hosting today's webinar. So we have three speakers today. We have Asanga Abhay Gunasekara from Sri Lanka, who will be sharing his experience from Sri Lanka. Then we have another Roman Udin from Bangladesh and Mirjan Binod Basnat from Nepal. Let me first invite Asanga. Asanga is visiting fellow at NICE and he's also senior fellow at the Millennium Project in Washington, D.C. In 2021, he served as a senior researcher for social impact in US, conducting a political economic analysis in Sri Lanka for USAID. He also led two government think tanks, providing strategic advocacy. With almost 2 decades of experience in the government sector in advisory positions, to working at foreign policy and defense think tanks, he had founded as a director general. He had founded National Security think tank under the Ministry of Defense. Before that, he served as the executive director at the foreign policy think tank called Kadire Gamba Institute in Colombo, and he has served in many other think tanks. He has got a number of publications. So Asanga, let me put 3 questions that can guide you. Like, what happened in Sri Lanka? Because it's quite some time, many of us might have forgotten. So what happened in Sri Lanka? Second, what is the current situation? And what are the upcoming challenges that Sri Lanka face? Maybe based on 3 questions, maybe you can make remarks in 10 minutes. Asanga, over to you.
Thank you so much, Pramod, and really appreciate you having this discussion at a very timely moment in South Asia as well as in Nepal. First of all, so I hope all are well in Nepal as well as the scholars that we have associated. Nepal is one of my favorite destinations. As you know, I travel every year to Nepal. And so in Sri Lanka, your questions are what happened in Sri Lanka and what are the drivers, what made it happen, as well as what's the future, what's going to sort of what's happening now. Sri Lanka, if you look at the crisis from 2021, we did see it coming, which was not something that came suddenly. 2021, the USAID report, which was, which you mentioned in my bio, working on the social impact, clearly highlighted there could be a disruption, in the government because of the public, the sentiments towards, in terms of the economic issues that was brewing behind the scene, as well as the corruption, the rampant corruption that is sort of accumulated, the large amounts of debt, what we have borrowed from China as well as other private sector parties as well as. So you would have a multiple I would say data points that contributed for the crisis. It was not one, but 3 attributes that I clearly highlighted was in my previous book was the economic, basically the corruption, the economic crime issue that was sort of a systemic. So corruption was one of the biggest issues. The autocratic rule was the next that, bring down, appointing, military, bringing in to the government sector, as well as getting rid of independent institutions. So that was the second. The third is the geopolitical factor, which countries like Nepal, Sri Lanka, definitely, I mean, we go through it in terms of large powers in our region. Sri Lanka rejected the MCC. You had the MCC sign. For example, right now the context is quite different to Nepal. You have when India, China sort of drawing close links, this disruption happened. Then you have multiple, you have multiple uh, uh, outputs coming from different sort of scholars coming in. I mean, yesterday I was listening to one of the Indian scholars who was blaming the CIA. I mean, that's not fair at all to blame the CIA for everything. This was captured when I did my data collection in Vietnam. It was very clearly explained by a scholar saying that CIA gets credit for everything what they don't do also. So it's incorrect to say that the external forces disrupting. When you see the internal organic systemic issues sort of brewing, and it was more organic in all these countries, even in Dhaka. In Dhaka, you remember, you and I were there. So when we asked this question clearly, that could it happen in Dhaka, they all rejected around that table, saying no, it would never happen in Dhaka because there's no particular place. You don't need a place for this promote. So you know that now from Nepal experience, there's no place. They burned. This is how it is. I mean, it starts with a non-violent movement, and then sort of slowly moving in towards just like in Sri Lanka, they burned the ministers' houses. They did the same. So it's the same pattern that you see. But geopolitics does play a role, but it is not fair to blame certain countries. But it was badly handled, just like in Nepal, I would say. I mean, there was a significant tilt to China. In Sri Lanka, the Rajapaksas were also the same. But here's the thing. So citizens basically were going through a lot. I mean, electricity crisis, we had the fertilizer crisis. So what triggered was all that accumulation of all that. And what you see in the region is basically, let me show you from one slide. For your second question, just share this with you. So basically, here is the region, but in Cambodia, you can see, I mean, last year in 2024 November, when they asked this question, where would be the next disruption after Bangladesh, I clearly mentioned it will be Nepal, and this is recorded in the Royal Institute of Cambodia. Why I mentioned Nepal? The reason was the data points. So here is basically the entire region, the Southeast Asian countries, and South Asian countries. What you see is basically what we took four variables. One is the obviously known the corruption index that we have. Then we have something called economic crime severity variable, which we created. In terms of how weak the economy is when it comes to large-scale corruption, such as government corruption, political corruption, as well as how fragile your central bank, basically your government, as well as money laundering. So various other factors we take into that particular variable. The next is the public response intensity, which is the number of protests, the agitations, social issues. For example, in Sri Lanka, taking off the independent commissions when people were angry, such as in Nepal, in the anti sort of monarchic party, which triggered earlier this year, so we're basically against the government. So it is not a one single thing, but a multiple things. So public response to intensity, as well as the geopolitical influence, the last variable which we took. And we weighted it from 1 to 10, how severe it is. So basically in these countries, you can see now countries like the low risk levels of Singapore, Brunei, Bhutan, of course, and Maldives, you have a medium risk going on, because there is a significant issue there also in terms of India out issues. We took all this into calculation. India is also vulnerable in here. When the periphery is weak, it affects India. I clearly mentioned this. There is a significant risk to India right now. So you see Indonesia, which is on the high risk Pakistan, Bangladesh, Nepal, Sri Lanka, clearly on the high risk. So above 70, but we would project it as a very high risk. You could see here, so when we worked on this data, Nepal triggered multiple times. And this is the reason that we had to mention that Nepal would be more possibly the next. And it had already happened. So you can see above 70 mark would be that. So the region is going through a significant, I would say, disruption because of these 4 areas and 4 factors. So we basically at our institute, what we tried to do was, couple these two together, the economic crime and geopolitics together, and sort of understand. If you look at the IMF now, what happens after the third question? What happens after the crisis is basically you have interim government. So Sri Lanka had an interim government. The Rajapaksas and Vikram Singhas got together, but that model did not sustain. Obviously, that model was, here people wanted elections in Sri Lanka. They delayed it for few years, and then the model was basically the previous regime. It's a strike between Sri. But in Bangladesh, it was different. You did not strike a deal with the previous regime. That was good. But in Nepal also, you would have a fresh sort of a interim government in place until the next election. But in Sri Lanka, we had the huge economic crisis where IMF had to come in, step in. So you would see in our IMF diagnostic report, which I was part of as a technical advisor, clearly highlighting the issue behind Sri Lanka was a governance failure. It was not only an economic failure, but also a governance failure where corruption was one of the biggest issues. I see a lot of hoardings in Nepal, a lot of young people, Gen Z, talking about rampant corruption in Nepal also. And they see a difference here, inequality in the society where, a segment of the society has got rich, as well as leaving them behind, more vulnerable, not getting them much opportunity. There's no opportunity for them. And many Sri Lankans leave for foreign employment, just like in Nepal, the case. So foreign remittance is the biggest earner for Sri Lanka also. All these factors, I think, contributed for this uprising. And remember, it is a warning to many other countries also. Now, in the region, that there is no place to do this. You don't need a place. Social media is good enough to do this. And some of the analysis saying, look, it is triggered by the West. No, it is not. Then they use TikTok platforms also. So if they use TikTok platforms, then it's not triggered by the West. So one has to understand the complexity within the country and sort of address it before it triggers. So I think I'll stop there. Thanks, Prabhu.
Thank you, Asanga. Thank you so much. Let me move to the next. Next, we have Major General Binod Basnet. He is decorated with Ordeal of Suprabal Janaseva Sri, Order of the Lion from the Republic of Finland, Order of Cross of Merit from the Federal Republic of Germany. He holds MPhil in Defense and Strategic Studies from University of Madras and is an alumni of National Defense College, New Delhi. He has commanded and General Staff Officer course from U.S. Army Command and General Decision Making from the Center for Civil Military Relations, Naval Postgraduate School, USA, and graduate from the Royal Military Academy, United Kingdom, and War College, India. So, sir, we have similar questions like maybe you can briefly talk about what happened in Nepal and what is the current situation at the moment, and what are the upcoming challenges that you see Nepal can face tomorrow. Over to you, sir.
Thank you. Thank you, Pramod, for inviting me. At the same time, it's a grave moment in Nepal that didn't come as a surprise, but it was more ignorance by the political elites, not trying to acknowledge the real national security challenges that was in and about floating, as well as not considering the fact that South Asia has been having such problems from 2000 to 2022. So with that a little bit, I'll just, before I really go into what happened in Nepal, let me just talk about a little bit of background so that I will set up a framework to address what happened in Nepal, the current situations, and what are the upcoming challenges. So looking at the background, I mean, one is structural. The political parties who are head of the governance, leadership never changed. So when leaders don't change the institutions, you can term it as a leaderless organization. Unlike the bureaucracy, the military institutions, the other institutions, there are leadership that always change time and again, so that new thoughts are learned. So when I'm talking about structural, I'm also trying to indicate on the thought process, the traditional thought process versus the new realities. So, and the other was the political parties' decision-making processes. So the decision-making processes were so biased and thought into what the party's interest and the interests for their sister organizations, rather than the interests of the country and the people that needed it. And the other is the governance issue. The governance, there was rampant corruption. As soon as, I mean, and there were, thoughts, right, when Nepal's political system took a change on a 3-layer government, there was always speculations that the corruption would increase because of the 3-layer system, and it did happen. But the sad thing is, it started institutionalizing. And the other was the addressing a national need versus national priority. So national needs were in one side, at the same time, national priorities were on the other side. And the other was the indications of these events that it would lead to a crisis was very visible, whether through writings of different experts or whether through in the regions, happening in the regions, or happening through other protests and in the country within itself. So that led to a political instability, slowly, diminishing the national credibility and the national stability. So, but it was always taken as for political comfort. The political leaders always took it as a transitional process, from coming from a 10 years armed conflict to a democratic practices. So it was always taken as a transition, but a long transition is a risk for national security. So that is another thing. And the other thing is the system itself, the political system itself started getting politicalized. And the other is the political biasness rather than serving the people was very prevalent. So that led to a current situation, which I earlier told didn't come as a surprise. It was ignorance by the political leaders. So what's happening right now is 3 things. One, I think the political parties, though they are still a stakeholder, as legitimacy has degraded quite a bit. And the other is the institutions, instruments and tools of the government, particularly the law enforcement forces and other agencies, credibility is diminishing. And the other is the Gen Z movement is also taking quite a responsible role, though Gen Zs had more coordinators, now they have more come with an identical issues and have regarded some of them as the guiding principles. So they've come together. At the same time, the cause has been more popular than it was. So that is the current situation. And so when you look at what is happening right now is there are 3 stakeholders. Yeah. One is the president's office. When the prime minister has resigned, the house is still there. So when I talk about the president's office, I'm talking about the legitimacy of the constitution. So the president represents the constitution. The other is the Nepalese army, who is very responsibly and taking into account for national security and strategic national stability, and is trying to negotiate with in accordance with the president's decree or understanding, negotiating with the protesters, trying to find an answer so that the president can endorse. And the third is the Gen Z youths, um, um, who are also being very responsive and trying to find an answer. But now, where the problem is, I mean, though it has been identified, I mean, like the former Chief Justice, who was a critic of how the governance was held in Sushila Kaki, has been identified as a common candidate by the Gen Z protesters. But at the same time, among the stakeholders, which has a little stake now, but will hold stakes, is the political parties who still represent the House of Representatives. So the House of Representatives is still alive. And so their say is also being influenced for a discourse, a political discourse that has come. So two things are in hand. One is the dissolution of the parliament is a fundamental bottom line of the agitation of the youths. At the same time, the political parties who hold little stakes doesn't want that. So there is conspiracy in this. And the other thing is, let me highlight on the conspiracies and the disinformation and information that comes when trying to solve our problems. There is so much conspiracies now, whether it's a geopolitical, some trying to argue about the Nepalese army, some trying to talk about the forces, political. When the issue is something else, and instead of finding a common answer for a political discourse, the things that are happening. So that is a great challenge right now for the responsible stakeholders to take things along. Because like for me, and I can see, like when I have approaches from so many people and the issues that they brought out, bring it to me as questions, I do realize how things are happening. But now, how should it go? How should we? I have a belief that the traditional decision-making processes and the thoughts of the youths, there's a big vacuum in this. So that vacuum is a problem in decision making. So what should be decided is, I believe the House of Representatives must be dissolved through the stepping the Constitution, one. Second, so that it paves way for our interim government led by professionals and on merit based, so that they give direction for the 3 commissions that needs to be formed, maybe 4 later, but 3 that I can identify is a commission for amendments of constitution. Second, a commission for governance, particularly addressing the anti-corruption drive. And third, a commission to investigate on the human rights issues and the force that was used, so that we will have a better future, a responsive, accountable institutions in the future. So this is the way forward. And I hope, I mean, we hoped that it would take place yesterday, but the difference is again on stepping the differences is in the Constitution itself, but a suspicion that dissolving would solve or would give a better environment for striding ahead for the right amendments in the Constitution, and the others, I mean, the fear that they are the ones who's going to be punished tomorrow for all the problems that has been created. So the fear of the stakeholders who have little space at the political parties and the leadership, and the let's say, and the comfort for the interim government to move forward is where things are stagnant. But I hope that they find a common solution tonight, and the interim government is formed, and the government starts working on a side ahead, so that we have modern thinking youths who have more opportunities in Nepal. So with that, I'll end. Others, questions are more than welcome. I would love to answer. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Let me move to Bangladesh now. We have Roman Uddin, who is a research associate at Center for Global Governance Studies, Bangladesh. He's also the assistant editor of Global Up to Date, a monthly newsletter. Previously, he led global communication strategies to an international law firm which operates across multiple countries. Alongside his research, Roman is an active columnist and writer with op-eds and articles published in leading Bangladeshi newspapers on issues of governance, rights, and media freedom. Roman, we also have similar questions like what happened in Sri Lanka? I have witnessed that. What is the current situation? Because I heard that Bangladesh still have not held elections, and what is the upcoming challenges that Bangladesh is facing at the moment? Over to you, Roman.
Yeah, thank you so much, Pramod sir, for the invitation. And from the very beginning, what I will be saying that yes, Nepal is also my very close one. I always visit Nepal in every year for once or two times at least. So yeah, I have the solidarity with them. So from Bangladesh, yes, if I want to explain the matter, is this is a very huge history. I think from the then 1947 to 1971, you know that Bangladesh has become an independent country from the Pakistan from in 1971. And till then and now, Bangladesh is actually has experienced lots of variant types of government, like the I think you can say it was army-backed government, it was fascist government, democratic government, everything. So for the last 15 to 17 years, actually, from after the election of 2008, Bangladesh has experienced the same government, I think. So that was the Sheikh Hasina government, and it was a Bangladesh Awami League led by Sheikh Hasina. So till then, Bangladesh didn't experience any proper election. You know, there have 2 or 3 elections in 2014, 2024, the in 2018. 3 election was actually not an election; that was one party election, and that was the grievance. And like Sri Lanka, like Nepal, the movement was actually a non-political movement. The grievance of the people regarding the democracy and human rights, all the grievances actually culminated in one matter, and the movement became a political one. So what happened in Bangladesh actually in the last year? Which was that people, and especially the Gen Z people like the Nepal, especially the youth people of Bangladesh, they actually protested against the government regarding the quota reform policy, reform matters, like it was regarding the government job quota reforming movement. But the government, as you say, that whenever a government become a fascist one, he or she doesn't want to acknowledge the matter. And same happened in Bangladesh, that the time government initially they didn't understand the matters, and they just denied them, and they didn't address the matter properly. And thousands of people have died for this reason. I think the Nepali government they killed 19 to 20 people, students in Nepal, but in Bangladesh it was more than thousands. So yes, so this bloody uh, movement uprising, that fascist government was just overthrown. So that was the situation in Bangladesh. A very non-political movement has become a political one, and through the bloods of thousands of people, we have just a new Bangladesh here. But immediately after the uprising held, then the challenges actually come to our in front of us, because the people of Bangladesh and the people actually was not ready to see these things. You know that during the previous government, it was really tough to say anything against the government. Pramod, you was in Bangladesh many times. You know that the situation here was uh, very difficult for us, as a civil society member, as the think tank. It was very tough for us to organize any international program. You know, you attended here in the conversation. We were really tortured and we faced lots of challenges. So yes, it was really tough for us to believe that fascist government would be overthrown. It was really tough for us. So the challenges came to us that what will we do? What is in front of us? And the frontliner, the youth people of Bangladesh, they have decided to get the Nobel laureate Dr. Yunus as the interim government head. And we took 3 days to make a new interim government, and you can imagine that we are actually without a government here for 3 days. I think you know, and this matter, like this is very, very difficult. Like lots of mob violence, everything, and people just attacked on the opponent parties, their houses everywhere, and people did it because lots of time. It was more than 15 years that they didn't have any, I think, any types of just justice and anything. So okay, but now we have the interim government. What is our current situation? Current situation is that the government, what we have now, they are just the civil society members, everyone. They don't have any political knowledge. They didn't run anything like this before. So they are the civil society person. They are the respected person. They are the knowledgeable person. The problem is that they don't have the knowledge to work in a political place as a non-political person. So this is very tough for us to maintain everything properly. And you know that, but yet they have, I think, contracted and formed 11 I think, agencies and commission to reform the things in Bangladesh, like the anti-corruption, like the election system, like the constitution, like the women's everything. Like, so we are forming this matter, and now currently we are discussing with the political parties how we can go to in a speculation a single place where everyone can come to a single place to discuss what would be the next of our destination. Since we are now in the reforming stage, and already government has declared the election date, the next national elections that will be held on the next year, February. So this is our current situation, and now we have you know that in the um, university's campus, we are conducting the student union elections. This is the many after years. I think it's been long years that we are holding the election in Bangladesh now currently. So the future is that we are now everyone is now ready to conduct an election, but there are lots of challenges too, because from the very beginning, as my previous speaker said, that India is actually now in a situation that all of their neighbors are now in a chaotic situation. So the previous government in Bangladesh was very much aligned with the India. So whenever they see that the previous government has overthrown, they become very, I think they have the security issues with us. So they spread lots of disinformation about Bangladesh, like Bangladesh has become the terrorist country, something like that, the right wing, something like that, this way. So lots of disinformation has been circulated from the India, and also they try to frame it as the CIA funded revolution or movement or something like that. What they did, same for the Colombo, and same they are doing for the Dhaka too. So this is very tough for a country like Bangladesh to fight against a strong, I think, a strong country like India. They have various types of media. This is very easy for them to create the narrative from their media. So this is a very tough situation for us. Yes, we are now facing this. And another problem is that the previous government, they are actually a very formed political party in Bangladesh. So they are also the leader, and they're leading the freedom fight of Bangladesh in 1971. So they have lots of supporters in Bangladesh. What will we do now with them without any reconciliation process? So this is the challenges for us. But yes, the political parties, the army, the interim government, the civil society, and the media all together now trying to get in some good things for Bangladesh. But yes, yet we have lots of problems. That's all from my end now. But if you have any questions, I'm ready. Thank you.
Thank you, Roman. Thank you so much to all the speakers. We have got lots of questions, very interesting ones. I'm still trying to collect all of them. But there are a few questions. Let me put them together, and then anyone can answer. First is that why is South Asia angry? Like corruption is not new in South Asia. It is only, is it the only factor? If it is not the only factor, what are the other factors? Because even quota was not new in Dhaka. Bangladeshi had demanded and they were getting quotas in the past. So, or is it social media or NGOs, or what is the new change that we can see in South Asia? So, one, why is South Asia very angry and why is all of a sudden? Second, there's an interesting question that we had in Colombo, Dhaka, Kathmandu. Where next? Where is the new wave flowing in the region, or maybe outside the region? We know in Indonesia, other parts, but in South Asia, do we see it exploring into other parts? So that is second. Third, there are also lots of questions on foreign interference. Like Vivek has asked, are you aware of the information of foreign power influence being floated during the Gen Z revolution on various international media? If yes, I mean, there are lots of questions like what motivated the foreign players if they are involved in this process? What is the motivator? Let me take one more question, 4 questions. Fourth is very interesting. It says that, is there satisfaction in Bangladesh and Sri Lanka over the outcomes? Because a student had, they were very enthusiastic, they brought changes, the people are very happy. But are the students more empowered in Dhaka? Is Colombo more happy with the recent the way they have reached to the current situation? Will they have major say in the days to come in the governance, students or the participating parties? Or will the same traditional power come to power in new packaging? So one question is, are we getting the same wine, same old wine in the new bottle? That is one. Second is that where is the wave flowing? Colombo, Dhaka, Kathmandu, where next? Third, why is South Asian youth very angry? And fourth, the role of foreign interference. These are the major questions that we have received. Let me go in the same order. Asanga, then Major Bashnet, and then Roman. Asanga, over to you.
So yeah, the first question that from the Sri Lankan perspective, the interim government that came after the people's uprising was rejected by the people during the election. So if you look at it now, you have a Marxist, the regime, by a leader who is more sort of pro-liberal, a reformist, ruling the country. So I see a lot of stability. I see very pragmatic measures taken by this present leader, which people are extremely happy of his conduct when you look at the economic side, as well as fighting corruption. Now, he was one of the first, his regime was the first to arrest, as well as, to bring a former president. Sri Lanka had never arrested a former president, and he actually did that a few weeks ago. So he tried to sort of detach himself from creating this independent judiciary, where not even the president can, sort of intervene, like in the past, which we had in Sri Lanka, many incidents. So we have independent judiciary. We have many cases now, more than 56 to 60 cases. Ministers, this is what the Gen Z wanted in Sri Lanka. They wanted to address the corruption, bring the money back. And most of the interviews I conducted, they mentioned that we need our stolen money. We are poor because they have looted our money. So the solution for the youth unrest in Sri Lanka was that, is now been addressed right now. So because by creating, like what Binod mentioned, creating independent institutions is key. So what's going to happen in Nepal, probably the same pattern. The post uprising probably will be the same pattern. But one has to understand the complexity. All these countries, what Roman mentioned, the geopolitical influences of a large power, India, and its influence to the surrounding countries. We have to take that consideration very strongly, because India was one of the first to come in and assist Sri Lanka with a large amount of money before the IMF. But then there was another thought in the society saying, look, India is coming in because India was the one who was behind it, the uprising. So they wanted to push out the Chinese in Sri Lanka. So these are the thoughts that I captured from various interviews in Colombo. So you might also have the same in Nepal. The Oli government was very close to China and wanted to push China out. Probably it was the MCC. Probably it was your uranium deposit in your borders. Probably, I mean, these are all areas of probable, sort of thoughts that's hanging out. To understand, I mean, bringing stability is the most important thing right now, promote what I could say to the country through interim government, but the interim government should be accepted by the people. In Sri Lanka, it was a deal signed with the previous government. It was not the best sort of a model that we introduced, but we learned a lot from that. Then again, dismantling the protest area. That's another weak sort of a position, because they should have allowed that to happen to understand much more what the agitation, what the issues were. So it was more communication channels to be developed. But here's the thing, the violent activities has to be stopped, obviously. The military, like in Nepal that you have used, we also managed to do that in Sri Lanka. So these are lessons that you could definitely learn. But where is the next to answer that particular question, again, like I mentioned in the data point. So you'd have to do sort of rigorous analysis to understand. Nepal came out because of my last visit in 2024, where, I mean, you were there too. So some of them were mentioning corruption as one of the main issues, biggest issues. Because at that same time, I was working with IMF on the corruption. So it kind of fit. But we were not, again, sure, because Nepal has never had this sort of thing in the past. Against the old guard, I mean, you had it, the monarchy, but you never had it, the sort of, the political establishment. So here is a movement rejecting the old guard, basically. So they want to see new faces in the parliament. That's what happened in the Sri Lankan parliament. You have everybody, all of them are fresh faces. So they rejected completely the old guard. So, and now what you see in Sri Lanka, the old guard are getting together, trying to show, look, there are a lot of, what they have their inexperience, like what Roman mentioned. They have no expertise in politics, which is true. I mean, in Sri Lanka is also the same case. But here we have the government has proven that they do have, although they never ruled the country, they have brought in stability with some prudent measures with the international community, as well as creating independent institutions.
Thank you. Let me go to Rizwan Basnet. So over to you.
Okay, so I'll take two things. One is the foreign powers influence, and the other is South Asia as a whole. So my first would be, when you look at the GNG movement, the protest, GNGs were raised actually in an era of global connectivity and economic uncertainty and political stagnations, and has a little patience for traditional rhetoric. So the reality that they were born in was in an unstable environment where they learned not to do things. They learned what they should not do, what the government should not do. So they were raised in that. So when you look at the movement, I would term it as a natural and unscripted uprising with a Nepali pulse. So I hope you understand that. I mean, yes, I mean, acknowledging the fact that geopolitics is very vibrant in Nepal. It's not that whether we talk about the MCC and statements that come from China and the BRI and the alternative of BRI, and also all these things. And yes, Nepal is in a place where both rivalries, United States and China rivalry, at the same time, India and China's competition is there. But as far as this Gen Z protest goes, I think it is a domestic problem not being answered, though different protesters were knocking the doors of the politicians from time and again. And again, I would say the ignorance of that caused this to happen. And so it went to the youths. So when something is dark, I think the youths went to light it, in the sense to bring the brightness for everybody in Nepal. And the other thing that really happens is like when things happen, see that, I mean, when you don't want to, definitely for political comforts, the stakeholders, again, the political parties come out with their own ways of trying to find a space, and the movement itself comes with a straight answer for straight questions for a right answer, and so there are diplomatic challenges and internal dynamics. So, but as a whole, I would say it is more a domestic issue rather than starting to blame others for political comfortability or for conspiracy or playing China-India cards or China-American cards. So I think it is a thing that we have in our hands and we need to solve it ourselves. Talking about South Asia, right, from 2021, not just South Asia, let's take countries below the Himalayas, like from Myanmar. Like, so from 2021, every year we have been having problems, and now we have in 2025 in Nepal. So, but it starts with economic or political problems, but here it started with a ban in the social media in Nepal. But the problems, actually, what South Asians are having are the same. I don't think all the countries are addressing the youths thing, because I think it is leadership, it is political parties who needs to answer. If you look at the similarities, I think all the nations that are having problems are the political parties led by the same leaders and the same patterns. So this is what we should learn from. And the other is, when Nepal is looking for a political discourse, I think we should learn from Bangladesh. I think we should learn of forming the interim government. We should learn from Sri Lanka and forming an interim government. And what we should learn is we must have professionals, matured people who can really give a direction for the country professionally without being politically biased. What is good for this country? So once we learn that, I think Nepal does have a good way forward. But as long as we handle it well within these 24 hours, otherwise I think things will be different in another 24 hours. So hope things come out, at least the interim government and the dissolved House of Representatives comes by this evening, so that we can have a good political discourse and turning into normalcy and civil. So and the interim government and the president starts their work with the help of the army.
Thank you, sir. We also hope that we get a new government tonight. There are speculations that things are resolved at the President House, so maybe a new Prime Minister will be announced very soon. So let's hope for the best. Let me go to Roman. Roman, over to you. Please unmute yourself.
Yeah, thank you so much. I'm sorry, I was muted. So thank you so much. I will try to address everything shortly. Because yeah, the number one is that the corruption is the matter, and corruption is the reason behind this movement and everything. No, actually not. Corruption was actually the thing, and the anti-corruption. What was the title of this movement in Bangladesh? It was anti-discrimination movement, right? So discrimination is a very vast area. So the main reason here in Bangladesh was that the democracy, actually. The previous government destroyed the electoral process. They manipulated this one, they're rigging the elections, and that's the reason. The human rights is the reason, actually. You didn't have the space to talk. We didn't have the space to didn't have any freedom of speech. So that's the reason. Democracy is the reason here in Bangladesh. And the corruption, yes, of course, corruption was everywhere and always. But the limit and the numbers, it was beyond your thinking. Thousands of lakhs, thousands, crores. It was dollars. It was really numbers. So yes, corruption was not the only reason here. It was democracy. It was freedom of speech, and election, everything. So why and another very interesting question is that outcome. Are we happy now? It is very tough to answer actually, because this is very mixed. As I said, that the previous government was a praising government, a fascist government, but the current government is not actually experienced one. So, and after during the movement, all the anti-fascist parties and the people were united, but now they came up with their own ideas, their own interest, their own things. So things are getting very complicated now, and the mob violence here in Bangladesh is really conscious things. Scary things here in Bangladesh now, the mob violence and everything. You can't imagine that how many protests happened after the 5th August in Bangladesh just in the 1 year. We didn't experience this one in the last 20 or last 50 years actually. So all the people came up with their own interests, their own demands now. So situation is very chaotic here, and this is very tough for the government, for any government, to fulfill all of their demands and everything. So yes, we are happy that fascist government is not here now, but the demand we had, the reason why we did the movement, yet to be achieved actually. So yeah, we are happy, but not the fully happy, not the fully satisfied. We need more. And the most important thing, what I think what I should do now is the most important thing that I took this question from the chat box, is that what the Gen Z of Nepal should do now, and another is that how they can protect the spirit. First of all, from my end, from Bangladesh, what I'll say that activism and politics is not the same thing. Activism and running a government, running the country is not the same thing. During the activism, during the movement, you will get many people around you. They have their own visions, their own missions, but they all will be together against a government. But after the situation, after overthrowing the government, all of them have their own interest, as I said before. So this is very tough. So what you should do now? First of all, in Bangladesh, what we did, the leaders of the anti-discrimination movement, they became a part of the government. They shared the political power. And I don't think so that this is a good idea for Bangladesh and any country, because the revolutionary persons, the movement persons, the leaders, if they get the power, if they get the benefits of the power, then their movement, their attitudes, and their all the benefits, if they take anything, then the perception of the people about them becomes changed. So first of all, create a platform for these Gen Z who conducted the platform, conducted the movement. Please prepare and conduct a platform and be a pressure group of your country for the next years, for the next government to become a pressure group of your country, not a political party now. Gain the experience and then form a political party's future things. But now, please do not take a part of the government. Be a pressure group. And how you can protect your spirit of the movement? From my end, this is immediately conduct the election. Immediately conduct the election, which take more than 1 year. I think in Bangladesh, we are expecting that we will do the lots of reforms and everything. But in reality, this is very tough because every political party has their own interest, as I said 2 times before. So conduct the election immediately to protect your spirit. Be a part of the pressure group. Always pressure the government and give a reminder to them. If you do the same thing like our previous government, your destination would be the same like the previous one. That's all from my end. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Roman. We are running out of time, but let me take one more question, maybe one round with everyone. Like there are lots of questions that what would you like to suggest to Gen Z at the moment? Some countries have experiences, so maybe Roman can address how were the students of Bangladesh able to create a unified front, because here they're clashing among themselves till yesterday. So what recommendation would you suggest to Gen Z of Nepal to be able to come together in such manner? Similarly, to others, maybe you can suggest that how can they move further so that there is a stability, they can have progress, they can focus on the agenda, because you can see that lots of people, opportunist people are also, players are also entering into this, because the protests were essentially leaderless. In such a situation, there is no single party or individual that has influence over the masses. So in this context, how can they move further? So let me go in the reverse order. Let me start with Roman. Roman, how did the students in Bangladesh create a united front? How easy was them to come together? Then one, and what suggestions would you like to give to Gen Z of Nepal? Similarly, to others, just like how can Nepal move further, looking at the experiences of other countries? Roman, over to you.
Yeah, thank you so much. I think yes, I think I have addressed this one just a few times. So that don't be a part of the government, just be a different platform and be a pressure group to your next government. Just remind them every day that just don't do the same thing as the previous government did. If you do the same thing, then your destination will be like the previous one. Don't be a part of and immediately conduct the election. It will be the helpful for you, I think, from Bangladesh, from our experience, what we have experienced. This is my advice to the Gen Z of the Nepal. Yes, that's it.
Thank you, Roman. It's a wonderful advice that they should focus on what they are for. They are here for change. They are not to rule. So I think they should keep on what do you call it, pressurizing the leadership to go in the direction they wanted. So that's Major Basnet, over to you.
Okay, it's a good question for our Nepal youths that are looking for their future. I'll give you an advice. Number one, stick to the point that the house must be dissolved. Second, if you cannot form the government by tomorrow, then make sure with the formation, emergency is declared. So this is going to help with the security environment and the security forces. Now the interim government, when you're talking about the interim government, you be the people behind to push, but having chairs, meritocracy, honesty, and pragmatism that Singapore hold it for amendments of constitution, for establishing a commission for governance, mainly for the anti-corruption drive, and make sure you establish a commission for human rights abuses, so it should be a platform, and your way of working should be for the future, which means when we are having an old mindset in new realities, make new sets for the coming up realities. So think of the future and do that. So you brought a lot of changes here, and people are very optimistic at home. So make sure you stick to your points, and things will happen. But as I told you, it's your time. Fix it up.
Thank you, sir. Let's move to Asanga. Asanga, over to you.
Well, from the Sri Lankan experience, there was no leader again. When you look at the People's Uprising, there was no one particular leader. So making them part of the process is extremely important, an inclusive approach. What Sri Lanka did not have after the protest was that the interim government that was formulated with with sort of a hybrid model with the past government, did not sort of have that component of inclusivity, bringing in the voices of the Gen Z. So I think it's important to have an inclusive process as well as a quick election. Sri Lanka took more than 2 years for the elections. That's a long time. And then by that time, the interim government, which tried to come, into power, failed. So due to, although they stabilized the economy, they did some work on the stability with the IMF, but they could not sustain. One of the reasons was that they kept the youth out. I mean, the voices out of the movement. No, that's not recommended. So you need to bring them into the process. They will want to do politics. They will want to be in the political process. So you have to include them.
Thank you. We hope things get normalized soon and Nepal move towards stability and progress. Sangha Abhay Gunasekara, Major General Vinod Bashnit, and Roman Udin, thank you so much for your valuable time. It was a wonderful session. We hope to have you again in future. We'd also like to thank all our participants for the participation and wonderful questions. Thank you so much for joining us. See you soon. Bye-bye.